Hello, and welcome to the Opulent Life Healthcare Radio Lounge, your ultimate destination for a healthy dose of information, inspiration, and relaxation. Our healthcare professionals are thrilled to be your guide by answering questions that relate to your health. Whether you're sipping on your morning coffee, taking a break from work, or just looking to unwind, you've come to the right place. The Healthcare Radio Lounge is here to provide you with a soothing and informative space where we explore the world of health and well-being. Our mission is simple: to empower you with the knowledge and the tools you need to make informed decisions about your health. The Opulent Life team believes that health is a holistic journey encompassing both the body and the soul. Now, let's get started with our healthcare professionals answering your questions.
Hey everybody, so it's your nurse, Rebecca, coming to you today, and we are going to talk about stress. Just as a disclaimer, or for those that are just now joining us, my name's Rebecca. I am a registered nurse. I have been working in my line of work for 11 years now. I've worn many different nursing hats, from behavioral health to trauma to transplant, you name it, I've pretty much done it. So my goal here is to just kind of open up dialect between myself and the community, with just trying to offer a helping hand and helping everybody live their best life and kind of be healthy. It is very cold here in North Carolina tonight, so it was like in the high 40s today, so now it's like in the 30s, and this is rough on my little Floridian bones. I am bundled up and doing this from the comfort of my living room, bundled up in a blanket. So okay, let's just dive right into today's topic. The topic is show yourself some grace. Show yourself some grace. So sometimes I feel like we just don't show ourselves enough grace. We are constantly going. And when I say we, I mean people in general. I mean adults, even the kids. I mean, we're constantly just going about the motions of everyday living. And I just don't think that we're showing ourselves enough grace. I want to kind of steer the topic towards stressors and how being stressed out can really impact your health. You know, it's a rippling effect. So let's just dive right in. And first of all, just kind of define exactly, what stress is. So if we want to just jump right into it, and if you see me kind of peeking over to the side, it's just because I have to have a little bit of an outline. So I have things written down where I just want to kind of touch on the topic. But this is just a very carefree kind of platform. We'll definitely have a lighter tone, but I just kind of need my notes so that I can steer the direction of where I'm going, so it can all kind of make sense. So backing up a little bit, we're going to talk about stress. So what is stress? So stress is the emotional or physical response. It's like your reaction to an event. Okay. Let's give some examples of what stressors are. Stressors can be acute, meaning like sitting in traffic, kind of trying to navigate between one location and another. And I'll tell anybody, I reside in Charlotte, North Carolina, and let me just be the first to say the traffic here is getting intense. And they call it the new Atlanta or the little Atlanta or miniature Atlanta, I don't know. But the traffic here is stressful. I mean, a 20-minute drive at the wrong time of the day can turn into like a 45-minute drive. I mean, completely just stressed out trying to get to your location from one place to another is just extremely stressful. So acute stress is one type of stressor. Then we have chronic stress. Chronic stress are things that just they're kind of revolving. They never really end. So, that can be the stressors of, having an ill child, or I'll even give an example for myself. A chronic stressor in my immediate family's life right now is that my father has dementia. And, with my father having dementia, and with his, mindset changing the way that it has, it's a chronic stressor, because you just are constantly thinking about, is he okay? Will he remember me? Will he remember other family members? These are things that the situation is not going to change. The diagnosis is what it is. And it's just not going to change, and it's a chronic stress on you and in your life right now. you know um Even when it comes to, say, money issues, a job that you have, just something that it's not going to change within the next few hours or even weeks. So these are things that are chronically kind of stressing you out. And then we have kind of the episodic stress, which is kind of like an acute stress, but it's a stress on a regular basis. So I guess you could kind of say that your job would kind of fall under the episodic stressor, because it can give you stress acutely, like if you're up against a time frame, or you have something that needs to be turned into your boss, or I'll even go as far as healthcare providers. When we go into our job setting, we don't really know what it is that we're walking into, because patients get admitted and patients get discharged. So, you may have a perfectly fine patient that gets discharged. The next thing you know, you got another patient that's coming in from the ED that is just a complete, they're very, very ill, and they require a lot. And there's lots of things that you just kind of have to do rapidly in order to keep them stable. That is like the stress of nursing. And again, these are things that you can't really, you can't say that they stop, but the stress itself can kind of get relieved when you leave to go home. Does that make sense? So hopefully I'm making sense here. So those are the three different types of like stress. And like I said, if we had to put a definition to stress, it is your physical and emotional response, or your reaction to an event. So basically, your coping skills. Going back to the topic title where I say show yourself some grace, I kind of want to speak on, what I define as, grace. So we hear people, use this phrase very freely, or at least they did when I was growing up, which was show yourself some grace, show yourself some grace. And when I'm thinking showing yourself some grace, I wrote down, giving grace is like giving a chance, or giving yourself time. It's also giving yourself, it's it's also giving yourself the ability to make a mistake. Grace is saying, give yourself an opportunity to make it, well, not necessarily an opportunity, but give yourself, don't be so hard on yourself if you end up making a mistake. Forgiveness. Showing yourself grace involves forgiving yourself for the things that you can't change, you can't take back. These are all things that, kind of intertwine with the thought of grace. So going back to stressors, we have all these stressors in our life, where especially, when you turn to become an adult, if you grew up and had a good childhood and you became an adult, and when you became an adult, not if, but when you became an adult, you realized that the stresses of life really did pick up, because all of a sudden now you went from living under somebody else's roof and being taken care of, and being having minimal responsibilities to now all of a sudden you have all of these adult responsibilities. So now all of a sudden you have bills, there's a mortgage payment or rent, car payments, insurance, health insurance, and you have grocery bills and electricity bills. I mean, it just, the stresses of being an adult. And don't add children onto it. I commend the parents out there because I do not have children. So in the midst of all these things that you have to do as an adult, now you're throwing little people in here, little small people that look like you, talk like you, and they are walking around here with expectations. And these kids have big expectations now. They're walking around here with these expectations. They want to be that. Well, they don't want to be, but you have to, because you can't just walk around here and not feed these kids. But you got to feed them, clothe them, bathe them, make sure that they're doing what they need to do in school, making sure that they have what they need the next day, organizing your days and your nights, their extracurricular activities have to come into place. I mean, and you're doing all of that on top of just taking care of you. And that can be very stressful. Not to mention the parents that are out there doing it, without a spouse or co-parenting in two different households. There's just so many different dynamics of that a family can fall under. But again, it all can create stress. When you have too much stress, when you are constantly in an acute stressful situation or in a chronic stressful situation, you are putting a lot on your body. Many times I work with patients, and sometimes I just want to hear what's going on at home. And I would say at least 75% of the time, if not more, a lot of these people that come in with acute situations, like they've had a stroke, or they're having digestive issues, or they're having chest pain or something along those lines. A lot of times when you sit down and actually listen to them and hear what's going on in their life, they've got a lot of stress. Now, stress with life is just inevitable. If you're living, you're stressing. If you're stressing, you're living, I guess, There are very few people, I believe, I'm not going to back up with any type of statistic or anything, but I believe that there are very few people that actually walk around and are completely stress-free. Like I said, if you're living and you've got children and you've got jobs and careers, bills, and all kinds of stuff, there's some element of stress in your life. It's just inevitable. I think where the divide is how you cope with your stress. And that's kind of where I want our focus to be today, is coping with our stressors. If you can learn how to navigate life and cope with the stressors of everyday living, you can truly say that you have a balanced life. I know some people who they have no coping skills at all, and everything that they do from the time they wake up in the morning, take a shower, getting dressed is a stressful thing because there's nothing to wear and nothing's matching with this, and the weather's this way and I don't have that, and all kinds of things. I mean, something as small as dressing yourself can be stressful to some people. But I also know that there's a great number of individuals out there that just know how to just let it go. In the words of my daddy, just kind of throw it over your shoulder. Learning how to cope with your stress is so important, because I don't think people truly realize how much stress impacts their health. Some of the problems that you can really face when you have a lot of stress on you, it can alter your body. I mean, and just to give a couple of examples, it can alter your immunity. It can actually start to decrease your immunity and make you more susceptible to infections, diseases, even cancers. You can open yourself up to, to getting ill. Also, heart conditions, chest pains, risk for high blood pressure, risk for heart attack. I mean, just having so much stress on you can cause you to gain other comorbidities, which can then trigger other issues that could be more serious. Too much stress in your life can cause your blood pressure to go up. And then as a result, you can have other complications if that blood pressure is not controlled. Um, Also, mental health disorders, anxiety, depression. These things can come about if you're not well knowledgeable about how to cope with stress. Um, Also, let me see what else I wrote down. Just generalized body aches, insomnia. Insomnia can be terrible, 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 because then it's like you're stressed out, so you can't sleep, but then you're getting even more stressed because you can't sleep, because now what your body should be able to do naturally, such as rest, you're disturbing that. And or it's being disturbed. It's not you disturbing it, but you're being disturbed. And again, it's just a vicious cycle with stress and these other comorbidities that can come. Also, weight gain, eating disorders, not only gaining weight from eating too much from stress, but I don't know about you guys, but I'm one of those people that when I get stressed out, I don't eat. Now, needless to say, I'm a curvy girl, so missing a meal ain't never hurt me. But but not to say that it's still not healthy, because not eating, you're not getting the energy that you need from the food. Your blood sugars can drop dramatically. I mean, a lot can happen from that. So I'm going to dive into a personal situation, but I'm going to wait a minute to kind of get into that. So anyway, weight gain, eating disorders. Another big one is risk of drug abuse. Now, let me elaborate on that, because I'm not only talking illicit drugs, but I will say this: when stress is upon you, when stress is upon your body, many times, many people get desperate. And because if you don't have appropriate coping skills, you can get desperate and start using both pharmaceutical drugs and illicit drugs in order for you to relieve the stress. And I'm talking about use of cocaine, heroin, also use of pain medications. You know, if you're if the stress is triggering chronic pain, you can start taking pain medications. And then if the stress is still not under control, then you could possibly, increase your use of the pain medications. Also, anxiety medications, benzodiazepines, Xanax, Ativans. Again, all of these medications can be overly used. Also, the use of alcohol, feeling stressed out, need to get a drink, that can become very, very excessive. And again, if you don't have the appropriate coping skills, then you're going to these other things like alcohol, prescription drugs, illicit drugs. Some people even use some people use sex. Some people use, interactions with other people, crowding other people's space or being clingy or whatever the case is, because they can't deal with stressors on their own. So they just find different avenues to kind of focus their energy so that they can kind of suppress what's going on. So again, all of these things risk for having highly stressful lives. In addition to that, also digestive problems. You can, stress yourself out and give yourself, irritable bowel symptoms where you are either suffering with constipation, sometimes diarrhea. Again, it can trigger what stress can do to your body. It can trigger so many different conditions, medical conditions, and just overall just mental chaos. I mean, if I had to just put a label on it, just mental chaos from just constant stress, something that your body just absolutely does not need. So, how do we cope with it? That's the universal question. What can I do to help to control these stressors? Because we've talked about acute situations. Okay, let's talk about the traffic. When I make it to my destination, I'm no longer stressed out about that. Okay, great. Then we're talking about the having like that acute stress that's kind of sort of chronic, like with your jobs and things like that. And you're saying, I can't switch jobs. This is a decent job. Yes, it has its stressors, but how do I cope with that? And then you have your chronic stress, if I could wave a wand and get rid of the dementia for my dad, I definitely would. But this is something that is, unfortunately, it's not going to go away. It's going to get progressively worse. Also people that have, sick children, or they may even be sick themselves, or dealing with, a chronic situation, an elderly parent, maybe not so much, getting sick with dementia, but just the fact that your parents get older and they just seem, the roles are so easily shifted, from you being the child to now you're almost like the caregiver, to your family member. Who knows? But the universal question remains: how do I cope with the stress? What do I do? How do I create a stress-free life? Well, let me be the first to say, a life without stress, it's very difficult for me to be able to say that that's possible. I mean, let's just be real. But what we can do is we can manage our stress. And when I say manage our stress, we have to learn how to cope with certain things. Managing your stress can be something as simplistic as going for a walk. It can be delegating time to, sit down and meditate. It can be going to church, going to Bible study, reading a devotion. It can be journaling, using your journal, using your pen and your notebook as a way of just getting all of the feelings out that maybe you just didn't have an opportunity to say to anybody today. Coping can also involve professional help, such as therapy, with a professional therapist, or even, group therapy. Coping with your stress could even involve surrounding yourself with people that just love you. I tell people all the time, you got to find your tribe. You got to find your tribe. You got to get out there. You got to find the people that accept you for who you are, love you for being your most authentic self. And when you're in need, you have an avenue to just kind of de-stress. I'll be the first to say some of the ways that I have learned over time how to kind of de-stress myself, because my life can be very stressful, especially being a healthcare provider, being a nurse for as long as I have. Work can be very, very stressful. And then, coming into my home and just having the stresses of everyday life, the laundry needs to be done, the dishes need to be washed, paying bills, trying to spread my time out between friends, trying to spread my time out with family, making big decisions. What am I going to do with myself? What is my next step in life? Am I progressing well enough? Am I at a standstill? Am I taking care of my body? All of these things. But the way that I kind of, de-stress my life is I decided that I just have to take it. I just have to take it. I encourage anybody to just take your time. You cannot, and I'm going to sound a bit cliche here, but you cannot take care of other people if you're not taking care of yourself. Whether you're taking care of a family, an aging parent, whether you're working on your job or whether it's just all of the above. You just have to take some time. You need a woosah moment. Okay. You just need a woosah moment. And I say just take it because you gotta grab at it. Um, when I was in college, I actually lived at home with my parents, and which was a good idea financially, but it came with some stressors sometimes because it was times that I just wanted to come in from school, or come in from work and just kind of like not talk or whatever the case is. But I come from a very southern background, and coming into the house and not speaking and not basically talking for at least a short period of time was just not an acceptable action. That was just not something that was okay. So I would have to come to the house and, talk. And I felt like I'm talking to people all day. I'm talking to people, professors and things like that. And, we were doing rotations in the hospital. So I had also been talking to patients. Then maybe after that, gone to work where I was talking to coworkers and clients and things of that sort. So when I got home, it was just like, oh God, more talking, more talking. Oh my God, just more talking. But I was big on taking like baths and showers. I mean, my shower time, my bath time was just huge for me because it just involved a very luxurious feel. The lights were dim, maybe a candle or something going where I could just take that time to just kind of unwind. Um, that's an option, taking the time to just kind of, take a shower or whatever the case is. But again, it's just taking that moment. Now, it doesn't have to be a moment where you take 20, 30 minutes, like, a shower routine. It can be something as simple as 5 minutes. Maybe when you're in the car and you're on your way home, why don't you circle the block? Circle the block, turn your music off, turn your podcast or whatever you listen to in your car off. And why don't you just circle the block in the car one good time? How long does that really take? 5 minutes at the most, and just complete silence and just allow your brain to just soak in that silence, soak in that moment of meditation where you just prepare yourself to go into your home. Also taking a walk. Maybe if you have an animal like a dog, I love dogs. When you're taking your dog for a walk. Another stressor, a way that you can kind of relieve your stress, exercising, yoga. I had a friend of mine, she actually got into boxing and that really helped her. She went through like a boxing gym, and she said it just made her feel better to hit something, whatever works. I've also heard people, I don't know if they have them in different locations, but here in Charlotte, they actually have like a place where you can go to just like demolish stuff. Like you can hit a lamp or you can like, throw something. It's just like a whole, like, there's like a room that you get and you can just demolish as much stuff as you want. And I've actually had a couple of coworkers of mine where we were suggesting doing it on like a group thing, like as a group, but it was such an odd thing because I had never really heard of it before. But anyway, that's something that you can do. Again, if you want to, involve a professional, taking that time out of your day to speak with your, therapist, or, whether it be once a week or once a day, but it's just a delegated time in which you kind of sit down and just say, this is my me time. Taking that me time is just so important because it just helps you to gain perspective. It helps you to kind of navigate through your day to day, and just kind of, it really, for me, it really taught me to pick my battles, because what I learned was certain situations I just couldn't change. And because I couldn't change them, or because I felt like I wasn't in control of them, I just allowed the stressors of that situation to just take up so much of my time mentally, and it started to weigh down on me physically, which was just not fair to do to my body. And the next thing you knew, the next thing I knew, I had high blood pressure and I was taking blood pressure medications because I was just stressed. It just doesn't have to be like that. It doesn't have to be like that. We don't have to put so much pressure on ourselves. We have to show ourselves some grace. We have to show ourselves some grace. You know, when I say show yourself some grace, I'm saying love yourself and be in love with yourself enough to prioritize you. Okay? Let me say that again. Love yourself enough to prioritize you. You. You are a priority. Before the children came, before the spouse came, before the parents aged, before you got the dog or the cat or the bird or whatever animal you may have, there was just you. And you have to love yourself enough to know that you can't service anybody if your cup is not full yourself. How are you pouring out into your children, into your spouse, into your home, into your job, if you're not getting some type of fuel? I tell myself all the time, I am no good to my patients if I don't feel good mentally and physically. What good am I to my patient? My patient has come into the hospital with a problem. And here I am as an employee of the hospital, as a nurse. I am expected to assist them in getting better. But how can I assist them with getting better if the only thing I have on my mind is everything that's stressing me out in my personal life? They didn't ask to be here. When I say they, I'm going to put it under a generalized umbrella. I'm speaking about my patients, but also they, meaning your children, didn't ask to be here. Your spouse is in your home. Hell, the dog didn't even ask to be there. You went and got the dog or the cat or whatever the case is, you got it. But the last thing that they need is to feel your wrath from your stress. That's the last thing that they need. It's not fair. It's not fair to necessarily treat, another person, differently or wrong or, treating them in a nasty way because you're stressed out. You need to take that moment or take some time to yourself and say to yourself, you know what, let me pump the brakes because they're not deserving of this. And let me figure out what I need to do to make me feel better. So again, managing stress is not only helpful for you, but it's helpful for your family too. Because when you feel good and you want to laugh and are having a great day, everything and everybody around you just it reflects more light. It reflects more light. When you're happy, well, I'll say this: when I'm happier, I feel like I just run into super happy people. Like when I'm super happy and I go to the grocery store, I run into happy people. All of a sudden, if I'm smiling, I start noticing that everybody else is kind of smiling back around me. It's the same concept. Even when you're dealing with your family or your children or, friends, when you're upbeat and you're feeling good, you'll be surprised at how magnetic you become and how many people just kind of just make their way to you. They just navigate to you because there's just this positive energy. Because I kid you not, there is not anybody on this earth that just says that will sit here and say, I just love being around negative people. I just don't see, I haven't heard that myself. Now, if there's just a person that's out there, then please just let me know. But I just do not hear very often that people are just loving being around somebody that's just completely negative. I mean, you just don't hear that often. So when you are thinking positively and when your stress is under control, you become like a magnet to positivity. All of a sudden, like I said, your smile is so big, other people are smiling at you, other people are inquiring about, your happiness, the way that you're looking. It's reflecting. And it just, if you get yourself in a good enough place, you will just beam stress free, and you will just beam happiness. And that, I feel like, is everybody's like ultimate goal, because nobody wants to be around somebody that is just bombarded with stress and negativity. And you don't want to feel like your life is just stressed out and like there's just no hope. Now, I do know that there are some situations in life where, and everybody is not, given the same set of cards. And so there are some people out there that are dealing with situations that are stressful, like homelessness. They don't know where they're getting their next meal from. Bills are piling up. Homes are about to go into foreclosure. People are losing cars. Their children, someone may have passed away and it hurts. A child may be sick and it's not looking good. There's a lot of people that are walking around with some heavy stuff on their shoulders. So I'm not dismissing that at all. But life was just not designed with perfection in mind. Unfortunately, it just wasn't. We can sit here and say, well, why did this happen to me and not someone else? But I'll say this. I got sick back in 2017. And when I got sick, I was in and out of the hospital. I had pneumonia quite a few times. And it started off with a blood clot. And then I was in the hospital, and I think I was just in the hospital for too long, and was on all types of heparin drips and fluids and all kinds of things. And my health just declined at a very rapid rate. And I was very kind of taken back at it, because I was generally a very healthy young lady, before all of those things started to happen. And I could have really thrown myself a pity party. I really could have. And my dad at the time, he was well, and I remember him visiting my hospital room, and I was just, I couldn't breathe. I just couldn't breathe. I don't know what had kind of came over me, but I just felt like I just could not get a good breath in. And I remember, telling him, to get the nurse, because I just couldn't breathe. He got the nurse, and he got very nervous, and I started noticing that he was actually very tearful. And I had to get a breathing treatment and all kinds of things to open me up. And they did chest x-ray, found I was having some pneumonia. And so they started me on antibiotics. Long story short. But I remember when we were talking, kind of like after the dust had kind of settled with that situation, and my dad was just very distraught, and he was saying, why my child? Why my child? Why her? Why her? Why her? And I remember just kind of looking at him, trying to figure out how I was going to comfort him. And I remember looking at him and I said, Dad, why not me? Why not me? Because if it wasn't happening to me, it would be happening to someone else. And I don't want it to happen to somebody else. I feel like we all have our crosses to bear. And I feel like some of us go through more than others. But I also feel like we have to learn that life is just not designed to be perfect. It just isn't. It just isn't. I wish that it was, but it's not. It's just not. And in addition to life not being perfect, it's also it also doesn't really work off of a time frame. I couldn't tell you in 2017 if I was ever going to see a healthy day again. I didn't know. I can't tell you that this whatever you're going through right now will be over in 6 months or a year and you'll be home free. I can't tell you that. Life is unpredictable, and sometimes you can be faced with challenges that seem like they'll never go away. Some of us win our challenges and some of us succumb to them. Unfortunately, that's life. But what I can say is that with every day that you're blessed with, every day you get to open your eyes and take that deep breath in, there should be a part of us that's grateful for that moment, despite our circumstance. Because every day that you get another opportunity to start over, you can learn to cope with the situation and come up with a game plan on how you're going to get out of it. Some things are changeable, some things, and some things are not. And there's really no remedy to getting, well, I won't say that there's not a remedy, but there's really no, you didn't do anything, I guess is what I'm trying to say. You didn't do anything to cause this rippling effect. Life just throws crap at you. I mean, it just really does. Life has thrown crap at me on several different occasions, thrown crap at my family members, my two closest friends. I mean, life just throws stuff your way sometimes. And it's not like you're not looking for it. You feel like I did A, B, and C and it still happened. But again, that's just life. So we have to take life as it comes. Not saying that you shouldn't have goals and things that you work towards, because if you have a family of 5 and you're staying in a one bedroom, apartment, and your goal, and you're working really hard, and the stresses of being in a one bedroom apartment with all these people, is getting to you, but you're working really hard to get a larger place. I'm not saying don't work towards that goal. However, what I am saying is take 5 minutes. 5 minutes. If you have longer, great. If you have less than 5 minutes, if you've only got 2 minutes, give yourself some grace. Take some deep cleansing breaths. Write down your feelings. Talk to someone you can confide in. Pray. Pray. Talk to God about it. Whatever you need to do to keep yourself together is what I hope you gain from this. I want to encourage you to feel the process. I feel like life is a process. And I feel like, feel the process, accept where you are, and take the initiative to show yourself some love. Show yourself some love. Nothing has to be perfect. I heard a guy say one time, the most expensive art is that has imperfections. So true. I mean, the biggest accidents the biggest mistakes can render such grand results. I mean, that's just factual. But show yourself a little grace. Show yourself some love. It's okay to be where you are right now. And and it's okay to be working towards something else, but at the same time, love yourself and show yourself that love. You know, put the kids to sleep early. Read a book. You know, do some yoga, take some time. You can. I promise you, if you get in the habit of doing small things to help yourself get through just the everyday stress, it's going to make a huge difference. You'll start noticing a difference in how you feel. You'll start noticing a difference in how you respond to people. You'll start noticing a difference with your children, a difference with your relationship. There will be, when you start loving on yourself, it is just, it changes everything. It changes everything. Embrace that moment. Embrace those moments. Learning to embrace those moments and accept them and accept where you are right now, it helps you to learn how to cope with things. I feel like when you're coping, you're treating yourself with a lot of love. So in the end, what I hope that you get from this whole spill that I've emphasized on as far as stressors, show yourself some grace. Show yourself some love. Do that for you. Do that for you. Because you deserve it. You matter. And I don't care if a job or anybody at home or whatever is telling you otherwise, you do matter. And there comes a time where you just have to snatch your happy moment. And I mean it figuratively and literally. Sometimes you just have to snatch your happy moment and just say, you know what? Even if it's 5 minutes, I'm just going to be happy. So I hope that this message, reaches every listener, and I hope it touches you in a very inspirational way. I hope that you're able to show yourself as much grace as possible. I hope that you have, that you learn how to develop wonderful coping skills. And I hope that this little snippet of information, puts a little smile on your face and gives you a little glimmer of hope. Because that's what the goal is here. The goal is to make sure that you are living your absolute best life, which is what you deserve. So until next time, show yourself some grace, put a smile on your face, find something to smile about. Let it be a genuine smile. When you smile at somebody, don't let it be a forceful smile. Let it be a genuine smile, a smile that comes deep from within, where you're just glowing on the outside. Just let it be a smile that's very, very genuine. And go out here and live your everyday, day-to-day life with minimal expectations of perfection, but a high expectation of knowing that you'll get through it. And if you're going through hard times, they will get better. So that's my spill. And I hope that you took something from it. And I love and adore all of my listeners. And I hope that you come back and we'll talk about something else next time. But until then, moral to the story, goal for the week, goal for the month, show yourself some grace. All right. Bye-bye.